On this episode of Bobscaping, we're going to be cutting back this Crimson Pygmy barberry. It's been here for quite a while and trimmed over the years to varying degrees. But since we did some topiary work on this blue spruce yesterday, the overall size of this Crimson barberry takes away from the effect of that evergreen. So even though it's mid-July and not really the proper time to be doing this sort of cutback, we're going to risk that. This is typically work you would do in March or April, just as new growth begins in the spring. And that gives a shrub a chance to do some regrowing from the cutback. So for this project, since this has some of the nastiest thorns that you'll see on any plant, they tend to be the ones that break off in your finger. Our tools today include a wheelbarrow. We're going to put the clippings in a wheelbarrow as opposed to putting them on a tarp, since the small branches of barberry tend to get stuck in the tarp, and then when you're handling them you get poked with the thorns after all. So the clippings will go in the wheelbarrow. We have a set of hand pruners, loppers, gloves, and we should probably be wearing long sleeves, and leather gloves would probably be more ideal, but we're going to try to avoid any serious contact with these branches. Okay, so let's get started. It's a cool morning. Sun hasn't really gotten up very far, so it's a good morning for work. Put this tub over here. Okay, so we're basically just going to find a spot to start into this. Probably down in the back here. Okay. And sometimes the easiest way to handle these branches is just to use your loppers like a pair of pliers and just put them right into the wheelbarrow. Handle them as little as possible. Okay, make a couple more major cuts. Again, this kind of heavy cutting is best done in the spring, but we're just going to go ahead with this project. Barberry are fairly resilient from this sort of heavy cutting, and where you count on your new growth to come from is from these little sprouts along the older stems. So we'll try to leave some of those, plus you tend to get these vertical sprouts, so we should get some regrowth from them as well. We'll have to decide here how far we're going to cut it back. What we'll do, some initial cutting, and then we'll take a fresh look and see where we are. Okay, so here's another big one. These are the kind of thorns you'll get in your finger or your hand and not even realize it sometimes, and the next day your finger will be irritated and you'll find out you have one of these small barberry thorns in it. Okay, we emptied our first load of branches. We're going to come back and continue work on this. It's interesting, the color of the wood in these barberries, kind of a yellowish green. Okay. Okay, it's a pretty shrub. I've noticed since these were first commonly used back in the 70s in this area to get some color, to get some of that reddish color. Seems like a lot of the barberries that are sold as pygmy or dwarf barberries are more like the standard barberry, and the growth habit's very different. The standard grows much faster and puts on a kind of a lanky sort of a growth, whereas the pygmy has a more compact growth, even though, as you can see, a dwarf, so-called dwarf shrub, can still get very large. Okay, this is creating some nice interest. We can see our blue spruce there better now. And if worse comes to worse, we'll replace this barberry with a new shrub. Always nice to be trying something different. Even though this red color is desirable here, originally it contrasted the blue spruce nicely. But you know, a lot of landscapes need renovated. They always told us at Penn State that the average renovation period for especially a foundation planting was somewhere in the 15 to 20 year range. And over the years we saw some people might get more years out of a landscape than that, but not too many got more than 30, because even with trimming shrubs it's hard to completely stop them from growing and increasing in size. So occasionally you do have to do a renovation. Hopefully your really nice shrubs can be salvaged, worked with, preserved. The tricky part becomes mixing older, larger shrubs with newer, smaller shrubs. They don't always match up very well. A lot of times on a cutback like this, it can take a year or two for it to really improve in appearance. So a lot of people don't want to wait. They just go the total renovation route, to where just rip it out and put something new in. And that could still happen here, but this has to happen either way. If the shrub was to be ripped out, we would still have to cut back the big stuff first before we went after the stump with a spade, you know, to remove the roots and all. Okay, so we've done a little bit of cleanup work and a couple more cuts on the sprouts, and as you can see, these sprouts here are definitely growing and have leaves on them. Now more light will get to them. We're counting on them for some of the growth, as well as on your older woody branches. They will break what are called adventitious buds. All right, for this episode of Bobscaping, this is Bob.